We actually had the global head of digital at BBVA spoke at one of our events over the weekend, and he shared with us a very important insight at BBVA, and that is whenever they have a failure, they double down. That's their philosophy. And so, Franz, to your point about Formula One, my original dream was to, quote unquote, start a Formula One team, which I did in America. We started a company, a team in 2008 to go racing as an American Formula One team. Ultimately, we failed, and so I doubled down. My new dream is to win the championship, so we'll see what happens. And what's funny about my dream is when I used to come to Europe for the first time and share it, people would burst out loud laughing, which I really enjoyed. So this session is really a follow-on to the morning session from Todd Pierce, which I thought was absolutely extraordinary. And he really gave us three messages. One is that digital transformation is a board and CEO down transformation that's happening within every one of the global 2,000 companies. Without question, every board member is truly scared about digital transformation. So that was one key point. Another one was that Agile, DevOps, cloud, software delivery transformation is on the radar of every CIO globally now. And then the third point, which I was incredibly inspired by, is just the role that transforming testing can play in unlocking this accelerated software delivery and ultimately digital. So we've got four leaders from very different types of businesses. I'm going to ask them about their digital transformation so you can understand how different leaders think about digital, how different businesses think about digital. And I'm also going to ask them each to talk a little bit about their Agile, DevOps, cloud transformation so you can see some differences there as well. Before I do that, I'm just going to talk a little bit about our private equity firm and the program that I run called Insight Ignite. So personally, what I do is I run a program called Ignite, which is about accelerating digital transformation. So when I meet with the CIO, I typically ask them a question, which is, what are the four biggest problems that you have to solve in order to unlock your digital transformation? So I'm having those conversations all around the world, and I haven't seen a single company or a single global CIO that can't answer right away. This is a top of mind issue for every global company. So if I had a room full of CIOs, and if I asked the question, how many of you are going to Silicon Valley this year, every single hand would go up in the room. And the reason why they're going to the Silicon Valley is they want to find technology that's going to help unlock and accelerate their digital transformation. What a lot of CIOs don't know is that actually in the Valley, those earlier stage venture capital firms are placing bets on futuristic ideas. So they're betting, will the market want to solve this problem 3 years down the road or 5 years down the road? That's what you're going to see in the Silicon Valley, which is important. But actually, to solve things today, you need technologies that are relevant to today's problems. And that's really what Insight Venture Partners is all about, and our Ignite program is all about. So just a bit about the firm. We're the world-leading private equity firm in the area of the market that they call software growth. So most of our portfolio companies are between 20 and 100 million in revenue/turnover when we invest. And the second part of our vision is only software, so we never invest in hardware or services. And the third part is only growing exponentially fast already. So we look for businesses where the revenue has already gone from 2.5 million to 5 million to 10 million to 20 million. And we find one of those, if we think it's going to go from 20 to 40 to 80, then we make a growth acceleration investment. You heard this morning we invested 165 million in Tricentis. We're extremely bullish and excited about Tricentis. We agree with Sandeep that there is a very large business that can be built here in this new continuous testing world. So as a firm, we currently have 13 billion under management, and each year we go through a fascinating process. Currently, we're tracking about 100,000 software companies globally. So whenever somebody gets Series A funding or angel funding, they go into our database and we start to track them from the very beginning. We have a team of 40 people that call almost 20,000 CEOs per year. So that's how we found Sandeep, actually, as one of our young analysts was calling. And I think, Sandeep, that you were ignoring them for some time. And then finally, the analyst said, well, can I come to your Accelerate conference? And that's really what unlocked the conversation. Out of those 15,000 conversations, we only find 2,500 that we want to meet with. And then in the very end, we consider 250 investments, and we only deploy 2 billion in about 25 companies each year. So it's an incredible needle in the haystack exercise, and I wanted to show you this just to emphasize how special Tricentis really is. This is one of the fastest growing software companies on earth, and we found them as one of 25 out of a pool of about 100,000 companies globally. So I just wanted to throw up a couple other portfolios that you may know. We have 150 currently in the portfolio. Docker, I'm sure you're aware of, and I'm sure your organization is leveraging microservices and containers and that whole movement. We made that investment about 2.5 years ago, just as the business started to accelerate. We put 100 million in there to help them move faster. WalkMe is a very interesting business that provides self-driving software, so it eliminates the need for training. So when you're done and the application goes into production, WalkMe is actually a Google Maps type application that can just show the user how to use it without actually having to put them through any type of training. Each one of these portfolios is fascinating, and there are many, many more in the portfolio. When I hear from a CIO what their 4 issues are, I match analysts against those and portfolios against those and try and help accelerate solving those problems and therefore accelerating the digital transformation. So Todd challenged you this morning to be brave and to engage your CIO. And this would be a way that you could sort of get more relevant on the digital agenda in the CIO's office, and that's help connect them to this private equity firm. And there's 3 ways that we engage with large global companies. One is we create curated briefings on topics of the CIO's choice. So if they say AI is top of radar right now, we'll bring all of our analysts and all of our portfolios and see if we can accelerate the knowledge around AI. If they say DevOps is a topic, we can address that. Whatever the topic is, we can bring thought leadership and technology and try and accelerate the solution. Franz mentioned we produce thought leadership events around the world. We were in Tuscany this past weekend with 20 CIOs having a very interesting discussion about IoT, about digital transformation. So we do these all around the world, and we can invite your CIO to come to one of these events. And the last thing we do is we invite CIOs to sit on the boards of our portfolio and help them accelerate. So actually, Rob and Vittorio and Erwin are all board members at Tricentis, along with Todd, to help think about how to accelerate the business faster. So with that, we're going to transition over to the panel. And first, I just want to go through, if you guys, just quickly your career, 30 seconds prior to Etihad, and then what you're currently doing at Etihad.
I'm Rob Webb. I'm the CIO of Etihad Aviation Group, and prior to Etihad, I was the CIO of Hilton Hotels, the global hotel company, and worked with General Electric and Equifax in the early parts of my career.
Great. Vittorio?
I've been 26 years with Mars, where I was the global CIO, and about a month ago I retired, now an independent advisor.
Very good. Andreas?
Andreas Garnabitl. I'm responsible for IT at the Spar Austrian Group. I'm in this company over 35 years, and my passion is Formula One.
Ah, yes.
So if you need somebody to do something...
Okay, the panel discussion's done.
I guess after we meet you, all our passions are Formula One. But, good afternoon, my name is Erwin Locht. I worked for Procter & Gamble for about 18 years, last couple of years in the US. And since 2013, I am the CIO of Friesland Campina, one of the leading dairy companies in the world. And since 2 years, I have the pleasure also being the Chief Digital Officer.
Fantastic. We've got a great group of panel members here, so I want to just investigate first how they're thinking about digital transformation. And Rob, we'll start with you, if you could just talk.
Well, I just kind of kick this off by saying you are all very, very fortunate to be in this room, because the opportunity that we all have is just enormous. You've got one of the world's top venture capital firms that's mid-stage, so all of the screening of the companies has already been done, and they've invested in a fantastic company, Tricentis, right here in Vienna, but also in Silicon Valley. And the sweet spot that Tricentis is in with respect to automated testing is something that is incredible demand around the world. So it's this unique culmination of events, because as a CIO, what I'm doing across Etihad and our equity partner airlines is trying to accelerate innovation. And that really means everything we're doing with online and mobile and all the rapid application and agile development we need to do in the most differentiating part of our application portfolio. And you're becoming aware of, getting trained in, using, and buying software that will make your CIO's survival rate higher, that they'll make your company more profitable, safer, and growthier. And as a CEO, they love that. Right? Can you make my testing faster and get my new apps out there so I can be more competitive? Can you do that in a way that makes the testing more automated and safer? And can you do it at the same time while you're lowering costs? So this is something that is very, very unique. And I think we all have a wonderful opportunity to be part of this revolution. As Todd really highlighted this morning, it takes each of us to commit to make this happen, and we can change the world.
So I had the privilege last November to visit the Innovation Center in Abu Dhabi that Etihad built. I'm just curious, I mean, that was a massive investment. Can you talk about what drove the board to make that investment, and really just how is the company thinking about digital transformation?
Yeah, well, you know, we're the national carrier of the United Arab Emirates, and the country's a very, very wealthy country, but they have these amazing aspirations. They want to build the very tallest buildings and the best education systems, the best healthcare systems, and they also want the world's best airline. So that means, you know, brand new planes from Airbus and Boeing, but also not just the physical aircraft, but the service on board and the digital guest experience that goes with that service. So that means the online applications, the loyalty program, the mobile apps, the in-flight entertainment. So, you know, you've heard the expression from Mark Andreessen and Ben Horowitz that software is eating the world. You know, what Tricentis allows you to do and your companies to do is accelerate how software is digitizing your businesses. So you're just, as I said, right at the sweet spot of an enormous opportunity.
Fantastic. When Sandeep and I first started recruiting CIOs, I have to say, actually, you know, testing, as you all know, for many, many years was not sort of the hottest topic in the world, right? And so it was fascinating when Sandeep and I started reaching out to some of the world's most famous CIOs. I think we reached out to 60 of them, thinking that maybe 20 would want to join this board. We actually had a 60 for 60 hit rate. Every single CIO responded and said, I want to have a conversation about that, and I want to consider joining the board of that company, which I think shows just how relevant testing is for the digital transformation. So Vittorio, I know you come from a very different type of business. If you could talk about how you think about digital transformation.
Sure. As a CPG CIO, I think of digital transformation from the top line to the bottom line. And everybody gets the top line and why the front end and the relationship with the customer benefit from digitization. Even a CPG, global CPG company that doesn't necessarily hold that business to consumer relationship, but it's more a B2B model. We had clear example where digitization and the development of digital solutions using DevOps make you closer to the consumer, create value with digital factories that are a blend of the physical product and the data. What many don't get is that on top of digitizing that shiny, visible part of the iceberg, you need to digitize the whole of the company operations. And that includes your data asset and your enterprise system, your system of records, and your ERP. And there are three fundamental reasons why you want to do that. And the first one is that data becomes equity, which historically is not really part of the success formula for a CPG, but now it's a big differentiator. And if you don't get your internal data in order, let alone try to absorb and extract insight from a multitude of the external data that with the Internet of Things, with the closeness to consumers and digitization, you accede to. So that's the first reason. The second reason is speed. We had several examples when you have a merger, an acquisition, what stands in the way is the integration and the regression testing of ERP, especially when you talk about a global footprint. So product like Tricentis would just, reduce massively the time to market, the lead time to make those changes happen. And the third one, last but not least, is efficiency. Because for any CIO who needs to digitize, part comes as an additional funding with a sometimes fat check, but the expectation is part comes from rationalizing and making your IT and your enterprise system more agile. And we had a typical example that the next frontier to get your enterprise system more efficient is to automate. And testing is, at least, as Sandeep said this morning, 40% of the effort. So we had an automation expert centers that was looking at all the transversal processes in operations, as well as a development expert center adopting DevOps for ERP, and both of them using tools like Tricentis, or looking at tools like Tricentis to speed up and deliver that part of efficiency. So again, everybody looks at the top line, and clearly there is a massive differentiation with the digitization on the way you craft the consumer value proposition, but we shouldn't forget the system of records and the massive benefit of digitalizing your operations.
That's great. Thank you, Vittorio. We spent the last day and a half here in Vienna with a room full of 15 CIOs. These are all members of our Growth Advisory Board. And the question we were asking is, if you're calling on a global CIO at a business of this scale, how do you explain Tricentis in such a way that the CIO will actually sponsor that transformation? I know for many of you, if you had the right CIO level sponsorship, it would accelerate everything that you were trying to do with continuous testing and Tricentis. And what's interesting is a lot of times when you reach out to a CIO on continuous testing, they'll ping their testing organization or their vendor partner and ask, are we doing test automation? And the answer comes back up, yes, we are. What they don't say is we're doing UI level automation, and we're not really doing automation of the core. So this is actually one of the things that came out over the last couple of days, is that's really a fundamental value proposition of Tricentis, is that end-to-end testing across the entire net new and legacy infrastructure. So
I'd like to add something there is you saw that big no sign to scripting. I do remember the head of our development factory telling me we don't automate testing because we don't have the money to pay for scripting. And with scriptless, that problem goes away.
Perfect. That's great. So Andreas, you obviously come from a more consumer-oriented business. If you could maybe talk about just, when did the pressure really start building on the digital transformation, and where are you in the journey with digital?
I think we are in this, let me say, digital tsunami over the last 3 years. So I think the effect on the retail business is very strong from my point of view. Because I think we are working hard to optimize the internal processes by digital systems, because I do not know how many thousand products per month are new on the market, and I think we have to bring these products to the consumer very fast. So that it means that one big part of this digital story is really to automate and optimize the existing processes to be much more faster. Then the second stuff, of course, is new business models, which are really, let me say, possible with digital, so coming more closer to the consumer. But also, I think here in Austria, the opening hours are, I think, very small, so I have to deal with how we can really come to the customer in, let me say, all the time and all the weekdays. And the third focus area, of course, is this digital customer experience. So we are talking about, of course, mobile and so on. So this is the third, let me say, focus area we are totally in. So this means that this digital challenge is around all the companies. So we are not talking only about online shopping, for example. So we are really talking through the whole company. And as I said before, over the last 3 years, we are working hard on that. So it was much more easier, let me say, to digitize the existing stuff. So we had, of course, our project models. as more we are touching the end consumer, because this is totally new from the retail perspective. In the past, there was the cashier in between the IT and the consumer, let me say so.
Right.
But with digital, with this customer experience, with mobile application, we are dealing directly. We as IT are dealing now directly to the consumer, which brings the IT honestly inside the company in a very strategic position from, let me say, from a supporting level to a strategic, because we are talking to the end consumer, and this is really, let me say, challenging also to understand how they are thinking. So this also means that we have now totally new disciplines inside the IT, let me say, organization. So we have really to understand how the user is reacting and how to really achieve this customer experience. Yes, and as more we are coming into this digital experience with IT projects, we now, of course, are in a situation that we need a permanent deployment. So I think it's the time with SAP projects running 6 months and then do a big deployment and have a lot of tests, I think is totally over. So I think we have to deploy functionality day by day or hour by hour, and this is, let me say, a big challenge for the IT organization. If you asked me 1 year ago, I would say testing is boring.
Right.
Now testing is strategic, and I'm very happy that my colleagues started to implement Tricentis and all these testing processes years ago in the, let me say, in the legacy world. So now we are really ready to also service the new world. This is totally necessary because business is asking day by day, having the functionality, and so I think we are very cool position now because we started fast, invested a lot in this new world. So we are not so focused on the old, because I think the challenge is really on this new customer experience, and so happy to be ready for that.
That's great. Well, that's exciting for everyone in the room and confirms exactly what Todd was saying this morning. I have one more quick question for you. This weekend we had 2 chief digital officers talk at this event in Tuscany. One was from BBVA and the other was from Schindler. Very, very different businesses. And one of the things that struck me as I heard BBVA's strategy versus Schindler's strategy, I realized that Schindler is a hardware company and BBVA is really a software company. And therefore they had very different digital strategies. And I'm curious, are you beginning to think of yourself as a software company now? And do you think retailers like banks are going to ultimately be heading in that direction?
I think this is a nice situation in our company because our owners are from 64 till 50, so it's really discussions of generations in that, but I'm very happy that our board and our owners are really thinking in the future, but I think we have to convince also the more senior guys. Our board leader always is talking, Mr. Garnabittel, you must be aware, we are not going to be an IT department, we are a retailer. But I think the understanding now is more and more that IT is, as I said before, moving in a very strategic position. And I really learned over the last 2 years, I didn't have, over my 35 years with SPAR, I didn't have so many discussions with board members regarding strategy and so on. And more, I think we are also moving in this position really to lead this transformation. So if inside SPAR we are talking about digital and innovation, they know the first address is IT. So I'm very happy that we achieved that.
That's great.
But I think we are really now a business driver. We are, for example, organizing and doing innovation workshops with the business to explain them where the future is and what technology can really bring into the business model. So this is our position. I am really driving this. Hopefully, or I think I'm very happy that the owners are really supporting that.
That's great.
So this
That's
is
great.
this is really a cool situation because the last 20 years we every time are discussing does IT make sense?
Yeah.
But now I think the world is totally changes, and I think that's.
Very good.
That's really the point, but I think we are far away from talking about Zalando or Uber, but I think we'll be having a look at to understand how digital can really improve the business, can optimize the business, and after all, bringing out really exciting business models for the consumer. Because honestly, going shopping for food is during the week, I think from Monday to Friday, boring like testing, but on the weekend it's really exciting. So I think we have to help the consumer to make this let me say, this day-by-day shopping much more easier
Right.
by models like home delivery or something like that.
Yeah.
So we are really thinking about to have some models to say that the consumer what he have to buy, because
Right.
your daily shopping, I think, is, your shopping list. I think you can write down your shopping list, but we can really provide out of business intelligence functionality to really support them and
Yeah.
to automate also the private processes of our consumers. And
Yeah.
I think so in 2-3 years maybe we can talk about is retail a digital business or not. But I'm working on that.
Okay, great. Well, another really interesting session we had this weekend was called IT in the Boardroom. And we had the Cio of Rolls-Royce, who's just finishing up a big transformation at Rolls-Royce. And two things he left us from his keynote. He said, don't ever underestimate the lack of knowledge that a board director has about technology, and don't ever underestimate their uncomfortableness to share that with you. So this is actually a big challenge that CIOs have, is they've got pressure from the board level on this digital transformation, but the board members don't really know what it is, and they're also afraid to admit that. So anyway, thank you for that. Erwin, same thing, I'd like to hear about your business. I know you just are transitioning now to take in this Chief Digital Officer role as well. If you could just talk about what caused the business to head in that direction, and how are you thinking about the digital strategy?
Good. First of all, I heard a few of my partner panel members say testing is boring. I think it's not boring. I think it's actually pretty cool. I have to admit, before I became a member of the advisory board of Tricentis, I didn't know that much about testing. And I totally underutilized, or I totally underestimated, I should say, the amount of time we spent on it, and the opportunity, if you really transform testing, how you can drive some speed and quality on the side. But I come to that in a second. So Friesland Campina, for those of you who don't know us, like I said, we are a big dairy player, multinational, about 12, 13 billion. We sell milk, yogurt, that kind of stuff. For about 80%, we are a fast mover consumer goods company. So it's very similar to Mars to a certain extent. And about 20, 30% of our business is B2B, where we take ingredients out of dairy and we sell it, for example, to pharmaceutical businesses. Now, about 3 years ago, with the executive board, we said, okay, digital, the world is changing whether we like it or not. We have to change, we have to adapt. To a certain extent, we looked at it from an opportunity point of view. To a certain extent, we looked at it from a threat point of view. Recent examples, for example, like blockchain, is an interesting one that is used to track or to trace the ingredients of food. And we have to decide whether we want to play or not play. Anyway, we declared a strategy. We called it Embrace Digital. And to be very honest, probably like many other companies, it took us about a year to figure out what we really meant with that. And where did we really want to move the needle? What were the priorities and how do we measure success, etc. Right now we have a digital strategy, if you like, and we are prioritizing 3 areas. One is obviously the commercial domain. And so we are looking at, we call it digitized marketing, but if you like, we want to set up our marketeers successfully in the new digital world with all kinds of tools and technologies. The second one is, of course, we want to set up a whole new e-com channel. And to a certain extent, we want to drive a new business model, as you also referred to, which is for us direct-to-consumer sales. So we have a few products where the profit margins allow us to sell it directly to consumers with all kinds of interesting challenges, etc. The second priority is analytics. Combined, obviously, with elevating the first priority, there's more and more data becoming available. There's more demand for real-time insights, whether it's consumer analytics, consumer behavior, or just business performance. And the third priority is what we call the digital workplace or the employee. We truly believe that on one hand, we are investing in customer experience and transforming that, but we also believe in transforming employee experience and therefore elevating the performance of the company. Now, last but not least, of course, like all of us, therefore we are challenged with a higher demand for speed in terms of technologies and bringing value to market. Of course, it always needs to be cheaper in our business, and we cannot drop on quality. As a matter of fact, quality needs to increase. So it's an end game. And then, like I said, things like Agile, things like DevOps are coming up. I wouldn't say we are a front runner, but we are catching up quite quickly. And with that, also, obviously, we are now very much aware of the pain points around testing, especially around the lack of speed, if you like, in those areas, both on the operational backbone as well as on the new fancy stuff and the apps, the websites, and very much forward also trying to transform that part of the business.
Great, thank you very much. Franz mentioned prior to entering the private equity world, I in the year 2000, spent about a year interviewing analysts, project managers, CIOs, heads of development, and I was asking the question, if you're trying to make software delivery go lightning fast, what gets in the way of that speed? And the answer I kept hearing over and over again was the upfront requirements phase, which is what bogs everything down when you're trying to get software done at speed. So we invented the market for software simulation, and what I spent 17 years working on was trying to create a real-time collaborative prototyping platform for product managers and business analysts so they could actually collaboratively design solutions with the business. Unfortunately, it was an idea that was about 30 years ahead of its time. But actually, the market is catching up, and at Etihad, they're spending time and money on design thinking, which is kind of the very latest around how do you rapidly visualize new innovative ideas. And I think an interesting question might be, if your organization is involved in this sort of early upfront prototyping, how can you get engaged from a testing standpoint earlier and then help make sure they do testing the right way as they head into the development process? So I've asked Rob just to talk a little bit about design thinking. What are you doing?
Well, I just, I think we're running short on time, but I kind of summarize it by saying that these technology and process changes move very, very quickly. And for everyone in the room, there's a huge opportunity to be a change agent, to inform your CIO, inform your head of development about the new agile design thinking DevOps world, and to be a champion for the changed behavior. And through that process, in addition to inviting them to connect with Emmett's venture capital firm, which I think they'd really they'd welcome that opportunity, you also have the opportunity to help make them heroes and make yourself a hero, because you're going to increase speed, reduce risk, and improve the quality and cost structure of that testing. And there's many ways to do that, but it means taking a bit of risk and being a change agent inside your technology organization. I would just leave it at that. I mean, you can read up on design thinking. It's a customer-first approach to solving problems in agile, bite-sized ways, and it's working for us. But I think everyone in the room has a huge opportunity.
That's great. Final question, and then we'll wrap it up. We've got to get some of these gentlemen on an airplane. Andreas, I want to ask you, when did this testing topic hit your radar? How did it hit your radar? I'm just curious, within your organization, how did they bring it to you?
It hit it really when we started to go online, so do online shopping. So we learned that this is not the project which starts and ends. So this is after the project is finished, the next project is starting. So, and we saw that this is a permanent process, and which really the requirements are never ending. And I think the main problem was speed. So that I really could understand, because I'm really trying to stay on the business side. And if there are coming requirements, I have to say yes. In a really, let me say, state-of-the-art online customer environment, we need this functionality, that functionality. So I think we don't want to be much more ahead of Amazon. So, and I think I really understand that we have to deploy functionality on daily basis. And this is, I think, let me say, the message or the topic of the year is permanent deployment in our company. So we are working hard on that. And now this was really the point, because I really have to clarify boring of testing is boring. So now I really understand how strategic testing now is in this environment, and how important is this in this environment. Because before, in this classical waterfall project, it was something, at the end of the project was done by the business people or for some IT people, but this was not really from interest. But now I think testing is strategic, because first of all, you have to save money, you have to save time, and you have to save this time on the testing environment. And as sooner you started to do testing, that I think is more efficient is. And the other stuff I think we have to mention is that if you ask me what is the most, let me say, important stuff in the digital transformation is people. So,
Yes.
and I think we cannot use the people for testing. There is much more, let me say, higher work to do. And if you talk, for example, about, you mentioned data science. So we have to really bring the people in that area. So we have to use our people to do this really future-oriented stuff and not suffering them by doing testing. I think
Right.
this is very important from my point of view.
That's great. Well, just in summary, over the last day and a half, there's really 3 or 4 things we heard from this room full of CIOs. One is that they are under tremendous, tremendous pressure from the board to accelerate this digital transformation. The second thing we heard from them is that they're looking for opportunities to automate within the IT budget. You know, typically 80% of the budget is spent on run the business, and only 20% is on the innovation. So they're looking for ways to shift that money over. And in our investment portfolio, we're seeing more and more businesses that are growing fast that have automated something. You know, in this case, it's testing. We just invested in one that's automating incident diagnosis and incident resolution. Many of our investments are somehow in the automation space. And the reason why that is that CIOs are looking for budget that they can release and redeploy towards digital. The other thing we heard from the CIOs is they desperately want speed. I mean, they want 30-day type speed, not 3 months, 6 months, 12 months type speed. And the last thing they want is just everything done at a lower cost, more efficiency. So I couldn't agree more this morning with Todd. I mean, I think you're in an absolutely extraordinary position to have a really fun, 10 years here as we go through this transformation. And I also think from a career development standpoint, if you are brave enough to sort of elevate your story up into the office of the CIO, I think your career will accelerate as well. So with that, I want to thank Todd from this morning and our 4 panel members here. Hope you enjoy the party tonight. I'm a big music fan, so Sandeep, I have high expectations. And we'll see what happens. Thank you, everybody.